against Larry Nassar, the predator who abused hundreds of young women before he was charged and convicted in 2017. Almost 5 years ago, exactly, on September 12, 2016, the Indianapolis Star broke the story of Nassar's sexual assaults. The story blew the whistle on decades of Nassar's abuse. Unbeknownst to the public at that time, the Federal Bureau of Investigation had received information about Nassar's conduct 15 months prior to the article, yet failed to take any action to protect Nassar's victims or investigate the abuses. Since then, numerous reports of sexual assault in athletic programs have highlighted athletes' special vulnerability to abuse. Last week in my home state of Illinois, an article published in the Chicago Tribune spotlighted a former Chicago Blackhawks coach who pled guilty to sexual contact with a high school student he was coaching. Cases like these make clear that sexual abuse of young athletes is a persistent problem that teams, leagues, athletic associations, and other institutions are failing to prevent. It shocks the conscience when those failures come from law enforcement itself, and yet that is exactly what happened in the Nassar case. For decades, while Larry Nassar worked as team doctor for a number of gymnastic organizations, he abused young athletes under the guise of medical treatment. Nassar used his trusted position to take advantage of his patients. He used the competitive nature of sports to hide in plain sight. By the time Nassar was convicted and sentenced in federal and Michigan state court, over 150 survivors had come forward to recount the impact of these horrific crimes. Today, we believe Nassar abused more than 300 athletes before he was brought to justice. As the details of Nassar's crimes emerged, there's been a consistent theme of neglect and inaction by those who are responsible for protecting the athletes. Between 2018 and 2019, a subcommittee of the Senate Commerce Committee, led by our colleagues, Senator Richard Blumenthal and Senator Jerry Moran, conducted an 18-month investigation into this case. The investigation concluded that the U.S. Olympic Committee and the USA Gymnastics knowingly concealed abuse by Nassar between the summer of 2015 and September of 2016. The Senate passed two bills aimed at addressing the failures in the Nassar case with overwhelming bipartisan support: the Protecting Young Victims from Sexual Abuse Act of 2017, sponsored by Senator Feinstein, and the Empowering Olympic, Paralympic, and Amateur Athletes Act of 2020 by Senators Moran and Blumenthal. Both extended the duty of certain adults to report suspected child abuse. These are good and important steps, but the reporting requirement in both laws is not worth much if law fail to respond and immediately and aggressively investigate the abuse cases. And that's exactly what happened in the Nassar case. The Inspector General's findings in his July report paint a shocking picture of FBI dereliction of duty and gross incompetence. The Inspector General's scathing report details the neglect and inaction of the FBI in inspecting the Nassar allegations, beginning in July of 2015, 15 months before they were publicly reported. The facts revealed by the Inspector General exposed apathetic, incompetent, and unethical senior FBI officials. In the 15-month period that FBI officials shirked their responsibility, Nassar abused at least 70 young athletes. For many of them, this was a continuation, but for others, they were abused for the first time while the FBI sat on the case. The FBI waited weeks from the initial report to undertake any investigative activity. The FBI failed to timely interview key witnesses. The FBI failed to properly document witness statements and store evidence. The FBI failed to inform state and local authorities of Nassar's abuse when it believed the assault allegations likely did not fall within federal jurisdiction. One senior FBI official went so far as to seek a job with USA Gymnastics CEO at the same time he was overseeing the FBI's failed investigative effort. And then, to add insult to injury, the FBI supervisors doctored the paperwork, misled the media, and lied to the Inspector General in an effort to conceal their dereliction of duty. Some may be tempted to minimize this misconduct as a fault of a few bad apples. Make no mistake, egregious failures like this one do not arise out of nowhere. They are enabled by systematic organizational failures of training, supervision, hiring, and promotion. I'm committed to pursuing legislation to hold abusers accountable and provide justice to survivors. I know many of my colleagues feel exactly the same. Today, our focus is on the FBI. How did it fail so badly when it came to Larry Nassar's victims? What are FBI leaders today doing to ensure that this never happens again? Today, we are fortunate to hear from 4 outstanding witnesses who survived Larry Nassar's abuse. They and the hundreds of athletes who also suffered at the hands of Nassar deserve much better from everyone, including the FBI. We'll also hear from the Inspector General and the FBI Director, who owe these young women and this committee an explanation of what the FBI is doing to ensure that this never happens again. And I'll add that I am disappointed. We asked the Justice Department to testify about their decision not to prosecute the 2 FBI officials who made false statements to the IG. I understand it's a long-standing department policy not to comment on decisions not to prosecute, but robust oversight of the Department of Justice is a core responsibility of this committee. I'm committed to ensuring that committee members have an opportunity to question the Department of Justice about this issue at an oversight hearing in the fall. The FBI's handling of the Nassar case is a stain on the Bureau. As chairman of the Judiciary Committee, I'm committed to working to ensure that the failures of the FBI, the gross failures of the FBI in this case, will never be repeated. Now I recognize Ranking Member Grassley.